and welcome to episode 2 of LASC Keeping the Light On. I'm your host, Allie Bailey. I truly hope that you all have been able to stay sane and safe during this time of shelter in place. In the meantime, let's keep you entertained. Last week we spoke with Gary Landis, our artistic director, to find out how the company was doing as a whole. This week, we want to get a closer look at the first show to be affected by this pandemic, Sunday in the Park with George. It is now being moved to the second show slot in our 2020-2021 season. It will now open on November 20th, 2020. With us today to get this closer look is the director, Alex Perez, the costume designer, Patricia Tyler, and 2 of our actors to sing an excerpt from the show, accompanied by musical director Sam Cisneros. First, let's speak with the man who's got the overall vision for the show. Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to get a chance to talk to you.
Hi, Allie. Thanks for having me.
How are you during this time of shelter in place?
We're doing okay. Just trying to stay safe and healthy. Our kids are still working hard in their schoolwork, doing distance learning. And we're spending time as a family doing things like puzzles. In fact, last week we just completed the Sunday in the Park with George puzzle. It was really hard. If you really want to get to know the painting well, try doing that puzzle.
Now let's talk about Sunday in the Park with George. What attracted you to this project and to Los Altos Stage Company?
I was really excited when Gary called me and asked if I was interested in directing Sunday in the Park with George. The show has been a longtime favorite of mine, and I grew up in Palo Alto, and I've always known about Los Altos Stage Company, but even though I've worked up and down the peninsula in theater, I'd never yet had the opportunity to work there. What I was most excited about is it's a unique space. The intimacy makes it really exciting to do productions because the audience is so close to the actors. That also provides a great challenge for a show like Sunday in the Park with George, which in its Broadway incarnation was done on such a large scale. Imagining how we could re-envision it for the Los Altos stage was a challenge, and that made me really excited to accept the opportunity.
Now, you've mentioned you've done this show before. Can you give us a little insight into your history with this show and Sondheim?
I have had previous experiences with the show. When I was in college, the show had just opened on Broadway, and it was an enormous hit. Our college was one of the first to obtain the rights to get to produce the show. That was thrilling as a college student. I played the part of Jules. A good friend of mine played the role of Dot, and she got to go to New York to meet Bernadette Peters. Bernadette had moved on to another show, and afterwards, my friend went backstage and asked Bernadette Peters, "Can you give me any advice on playing the role in Sunday in the Park with George?" And Bernadette Peters said, "My advice to you is never stop exploring the text. Even when you think you know it, keep going back and looking deeper at what's in there. It's so rich, it's so vibrant, there's so much to unpack. Just keep exploring that." I thought that was great advice. In fact, I shared that with the cast when we first began our rehearsals. My second encounter with the show was in the 90s with the TheaterWorks production. I was the musical stager and assistant director. Robert Kelly was directing. We had an incredible cast. It was just a glorious experience. And it's one of the reasons why Sunday in the Park with George has remained one of my favorite shows of all time.
I can definitely see why you love this show. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you're excited to do this show?
For those of you that don't know the show, Sunday in the Park with George is about the painter George Seurat and about the creating of his masterpiece Sunday on the island of Le Grand Jatte. The painting is done in pointillist style, which for its time was brand new and wasn't always widely accepted by George's peers in particular. So George is often misunderstood, and that's part of what the play is about, trying to break through when people don't understand what you're trying to accomplish. It's about trying to be true to yourself. And it's about what matters most in life, the art you leave behind, and your legacy. Staging the show has its challenges. The first is a Stephen Sondheim musical. Sondheim's work is never easy. It's complicated, it's thoughtful. But in this show, there are a lot of soaring melodies, and it's perhaps one of his most personal scores ever. The other challenge is that throughout the first act of the show, we watch the artist bringing his painting to life scene by scene. And by the end of Act 1, the entire painting is recreated before the audience's eyes with the actors and the set. It's hard to do that. It was one of the great challenges of figuring out, well, how would we do it on the LASC stage? So the first thing I did was turn to our brilliant set designer, Skip Epperson. Skip and I met and had several conversations about what the show meant to us. One of the things we talked a lot about was how much we like to see art being created and how could we honor the creation of art. So Skip came up with this brilliant design that fits in the Los Altos stage. It's going to be thrilling, and I'm really excited about it. The other thing that I realized when I was doing early research was that when the production was originally done, it wasn't designed for a Broadway stage. It was designed for a theater that's very much like the Los Altos stage. And that excited me because I knew that we would have the opportunity to bring the immediacy to the audience. You'll be right there connecting with the characters as they take you on this journey.
Now, you guys had already started the rehearsal process when you found out the show was going to be postponed. Where were you in the process?
We were in about our third or fourth week of rehearsals when we learned that we'd have to suspend the show and that it was going to be postponed into the next season. I don't think anyone was too surprised, given where we were with the health crisis, that we would have to stop. But we were all disappointed. We'd been working really hard. The cast had learned all the music. We had staged several of the major sequences. We had done a lot of the small scenes. And we were about a week away from moving into the theater. So the sets were being built. A lot of the costumes were already constructed. So we were well underway when we learned we'd have to stop.
Do you foresee any challenges with starting up rehearsals again this fall?
One of the challenges will be trying to keep everyone together until the fall. So far, I think we've managed to do that, and I'm so thrilled because everybody working on the show is just first rate. People were so committed to this project. The talent was really terrific, and I'll be very excited if we can all be back when we get going again. The other challenge will be, can we keep the momentum going that we had? It'll have been several months since we stopped rehearsals, and in some ways it'll be like starting over again. But in some ways, that's also one of the benefits, because in the theater, one of the luxuries you don't often have is time. And now we have some time. We have time where we can dive deeper into the show itself. Sondheim's music is so incredibly complex, so the luxury of having a little bit more time to dive into that, to learn the parts, I think will really be beneficial to everybody.
How do you maintain connection and morale?
Staying connected right now is certainly a challenge. One of the ways we're trying to keep everyone engaged is we created a Facebook page just for the cast and production staff. And that's been really kind of fun to see everybody engaged there. We've shared some thoughts and memories and photos of rehearsals and the show itself, but also people have showed us the puzzles they've been working on. And just recently we had everybody share a picture from one of their favorite roles that they've played in another production. So that's been great. It's just another way I hope we continue to get to know each other. I think it's a really tight-knit group, and I hope we can stay close and keep everybody engaged.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. We look forward to seeing Sunday in the Park with George on stage this fall.
Thanks for having me.
A director's strength comes from the support, creativity, and collaboration of their production team. Now let's speak with the woman who's in charge of the clothing, visual aesthetic for the production, Patricia Tyler. Hi, Pat. Thanks so much for joining us this week to talk about Sunday in the Park with George.
Hi, Allie.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Really great. And I guess you're not actually in the same room, so I guess I don't really need to get rid of this thing. There. I'm fine. I'm good. I've been in the house since, I think, March 10th was the last time. A couple of trips to the grocery store, maybe, but pretty sure my car battery's dead by now, but that's okay. I've been baking a lot and eating the baking, which means I've gained about 10 pounds too, but that's okay too. This is all's good. Everything is good. Yeah, except you know what? I could really use a shower. Some lipstick. Be right back. There. Much better. Wow, I haven't looked this good in weeks.
Now let's talk about Sunday in the Park with George. What attracted you to costume design this show?
So, Sunday in the Park with George. What attracted me to Sunday in the Park with George was the idea of recreating this painting. The constraints of costuming Sunday in the Park is that you have to recreate the painting. And Alex and I met very early on about it, and just his vision for the show was a very realistic look. So all the costumes would match up with the painting. The magic of the show is when everybody comes together and creates that painting. That's part of the magic. And plus, I love the music, and this cast is going to be just spectacular.
Where were you in the costume design process for this show when news of postponement came?
Well, we had just finished the photo shoot with Ian and Mary and Mike Rohn, who play George and Dot and Jules. And it was wonderful. And then everything in the next 2 days came to just a screeching halt. So I was about, I think, since it was only about March 9th, 8th or 9th, I was probably about a third of the way through building costumes and collecting costumes that were already made that I was going to use from other theater companies. So we were in good shape, but it would have been great to keep going.
Where are you now in the design process?
Where am I now? Well, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to do costumes without any actors to try on the costumes. So I do have everyone's measurements, and I'm doing what I can, mainly with petticoats and skirts and corsets and things that I don't actually need to try on people. The waist can be adjusted and the length can be adjusted, so it's pretty easy to do that. So I have been sort of chugging along, and I've also been doing a lot of drawings. Is there anything I can show? Well, let's see here. There's a lovely purple bustle petticoat here. The Victorians liked their booty. And then another piece that would have been on Dot in the beginning of the show.
I know there's been a large feeling of loss rippling through the arts community with so many shows being canceled and postponed. Is there any silver lining to the situation for you?
It's really hard to find a silver lining in something that's been so tragic for so many people. But I mean, I do now have the luxury of time. Usually in costuming, you at this level, I have probably 5, 6, 7 weeks, and I like to build costumes. I like to sew, so it's always a crunch. But now I kind of have the luxury to do things a little more thoughtful pace. I can put 13 ruffles on the back of a petticoat without having to stop and do something else that was higher on the priority list. So if there's anything, it's the luxury of time. I have more time. I want to do a few more creative things with the costumes that I could not have done in 5 or 6 weeks.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We look forward to seeing your work on stage this fall.
Thank you, Allie, and thanks everyone for watching. Come and see Sunday in the Park with George at Los Altos Stage Company, opening November 20th, 2020, which just happens to be my birthday.
And to give you a small glimpse of what is to come, here are 2 of our cast members singing an excerpt from the show, Mary Foster and Ian Leonard.
Marie.
It's good to see you. Not that I ever forgot you, George. You gave me so much. You taught me about concentration. At first, I thought that just meant being still, but I was to understand it meant much more. What about you? Are you working on something new?
No, I'm not working on anything new.
That's not like you, George.
I've nothing to say.
You have many things.
Well, nothing that's not been said.
Said by you, though, George.
I do not know where to go.
Nor did I.
I want to make things that count, things that
I did what I had to do.
What am I to do?
Move on. Stop worrying where you're going. Move on. If you can know where you're going, you've gone. just keep moving on. I chose and my world was shaken, so what? The choice may have been mistaken, the choosing was not. You have to move on. Look at what you've done, not at where you are, not at what you'll be. Look at all the things you gave to me. Opened up my eyes.
Here at Los Altos Stage Company, we recognize that live theater is so important, and we know that you understand that as well. There are many ways to support us. First of all, like this video. It's the little thumbs up sign right below you. Share it with your friends and family. Also, like us on Facebook so that you can see the most up-to-date things happening at Los Altos Stage Company. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support. Also, make sure to mark your calendars for Sunday in the Park with George. It previews on November 19th and runs through December 20th, 2020. If you are able to, please make a donation of any size. It's greatly appreciated and helps us during this time of shelter in place. Just go to our website, www.losaltosstage.org, and click the donate button in the lower left-hand corner. Any amount is greatly appreciated, and we thank you. Thank you for tuning in this week. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, keep the light on.